All right, you guys, this week we're going to learn about the Roman government. So, this is a reading about the Roman Republic. For 500 years, ancient Rome was governed by the Roman Republic. This was a form of government that allowed for people to elect officials. It was a complex government with a constitution, detailed laws, and elected officials such as senators. Many of the ideas and structures of this government became the basis for modern democracies. Okay, so ancient Rome kind of was set up like our government. Okay, you elected people, we have elections, we elect senators and governors and the president. Um, it was kind of the same way. And they had a constitution. We have a constitution, which gives us our rights. We have laws. So the ancient Roman government 500 years ago was very similar to the government we have today. So who were the leaders in this Roman Republic? The Roman Republic had a number of leaders and groups that helped to govern. Elected officials were called magistrates, and there were different levels and titles of magistrates. The Roman government was very complicated and had lots of leaders and councils. Here are some of the titles and what they did. Okay, so all that's saying is that within the government, there were lots of different people who did lots of different things, which is still the same way it is today. We don't want just one person making all the rules, right? You need a whole group of people, different people in charge of different things. People vote. That's how we come to a consensus or an agreement so that not just one person is in charge. So we're going to talk about the different titles and what they did. Consuls. At the top of the Roman Republic was the consul. The consul was a very powerful position. In order to keep the consul from becoming a king or dictator, there were always two consuls elected, and they only served for 1 year. Also, the consuls could veto each other if they didn't agree on something. The consuls had a wide range of powers. They decided when to go to war, how much tax to collect, and what the laws were. Okay, so at the top, the Roman Republic was the consul. He was very important. He was very powerful. But they didn't just want one person because they don't just want one person to be in charge, right? So there were two, and they only got to serve for a year, which is a good thing, which because sometimes when you're in power for too long, you get stagnant or stale. You need new ideas. You need new ways to think and to do things, okay? So the two consuls, if one wanted to do one thing and the other didn't agree with it, they could say, not happening. That's called vetoing. Vetoing is stopping something. So they decided when to go to war, how much tax to collect, and what the laws were. So they were super, super important. Next, we had the senators. The Senate was a group of prestigious or important leaders who advised the consuls. The consuls usually did what the Senate recommended. Senators were selected for life. So consuls served 1 term. Senators, once you became a senator, you were a senator. You could be there until you died. Okay, so the senators were really important because the consuls looked to them for advice. And usually, whatever the Senate recommended, the consuls did. Plebeian Council. The Plebeian Council was also called the People's Assembly. This was how the common people, plebeians, could elect their own leaders, magistrates, pass laws, and hold courts. Okay, so the Plebeian Council was the People Council. So it was for the common people, the people like you and me, just regular old people living in the world, okay? So this council, they elected their own leaders, they passed their own laws, and they could hold court. Tribunes. Tribunes were the representatives of the plebeian council. They could veto laws made by the Senate. So the plebeian council had their people, and then they elected people to represent them. These were called the tribunes, okay? So if the Senate made laws that the tribunes didn't like, they could veto it. Remember what I told you veto meant? Veto means, stop, not happening, okay? Governors. As Rome conquered new lands, they needed someone to be the local ruler. The Senate would appoint a governor to rule the land or province. The governor would be in charge of the local Roman army and would also be responsible to collect taxes. Governors were also called proconsuls. So, as Rome conquered or won more land, which means they kept growing and growing, they needed people to be the ruler in the local areas, okay? So that's like here, We have rulers. We have Howard County delegates, we have Baltimore County delegates, we have Carroll County delegates. So we have people who rule each of our areas here, because otherwise one person, that's a huge job for them. So it was the same type of thing. As they got more and more land and area, they needed people to be in charge of each land or area. Okay, so those were the governors. An ideal was a city official who was responsible for the maintenance of public buildings as well as public festivals. Many politicians who wanted to be elected to a higher office, like a consul, would become an ideal so they could hold big public festivals and gain popularity with the people. Okay, so this is somebody who was a city official. So he had a small type of area, but he wanted to do bigger. So it's the same way now in our government. You start small, you run for the county or the city, and then you run for the state. Um, and then if you want to be president, you have to build your way up. You start small, you do some good things, you make some good policies or rules, and you get a following. And then you run for a bigger position. Censor. The censor counted the citizens and kept track of the census. They also had some responsibilities to maintain public morality and to look after public finances. So the censor, a census is counting the people who live in an area. There's actually the 2020 census going on right now. Your parents probably got something in the mail that they need to fill out. So the censor kept track of how many people there were. They also had to look at the public finances and a couple other small things. The Constitution. The Roman Republic did not have a precise written constitution. The Constitution was more of a set of guidelines and principles that were passed down from generation to generation. It provided for separate branches of government and balances of power. Okay, so their Constitution was like guidelines and rules that were passed down. So, like, it's always been done this way, it's going to continue to be done this way. It's kind of the way it was. So, but it also provided for separate branches of the government and balances of power. So the beginning, when we were talking about like the Senate up there, they kind of help the consuls not be in all the power. It's not good if one person has all the power. You need to have people come together to get ideas and to make decisions to make sure that everybody's represented. Were all people treated equally? No, nope. People were treated differently based on their wealth, gender, and citizenship. Women did not get the right to vote or hold office. Also, if you had more money, you got more voting power. Consuls, senators, and governors only came from the rich aristocracy. This may sound unfair, but it was a big change from other civilizations where the average person had no say at all. In Rome, the regular people could band together and have considerable power through the assembly and their tribunes. Okay, so was it perfect? Was the Roman Republic perfect? No, it wasn't. You were still treated differently based on your wealth, gender, and citizenship, meaning if you were born in Rome, just like you have U.S. citizenship or not. So, however, it was better than the way it had been. Okay, so while everything wasn't completely equal, at least there were people in charge now. So try to make it a little more equal, okay? So, and you did get some power. The regular, normal people like you and I, they could band together, and through their tribunes and their assemblies, they did have some power, where in the past they had zero power at all. All right, if you have any questions, let me know.